You're listening to this episode of the History of Rome. Now let's start our journey. We are in the heart of ancient Rome. To be more precise, we are in Subura, one of the oldest parts of the city. And we are here on an unremarkable Tuesday, probably around midday. As we walk along these ancient streets, we can hear the clamor of commerce all around us. This is not a place for quiet contemplation, but a hub of trade and chatter. Here we find small workshops where artisans ply their trades. There is the clatter of the hammer on the anvil, the rasp of a file smoothing metal, the sting of a chisel striking stone. These craftsmen work not just to create beautiful objects, but to earn enough to survive. In this part of town, there is a baker pulling his loaves from the oven, the smell of fresh bread mixing with the aroma of incense from a nearby shop. A little farther on, a fishmonger displays his catch of the day, scales hanging beside him to weigh out portions for his customers. Nearby, a fruit seller calls out the virtues of his wares, perhaps coaxing someone to buy an early pomegranate or juicy grapes. Here in Subura, we are amidst the pulse of the city. This is where Rome truly lived. The grand monuments are elsewhere, as are the great buildings of government and religion, but this is where real life played out. And if we stand still for a moment and listen carefully, we can almost hear the echoes of daily life. We hear the lowing of cattle being driven to the market. Above us, a tile falls from a roof and a cat shrieks. A customer argues over the price of a garment. A mother calls to her child. In the distance, a vendor cries out the news of the day. Life in ancient Rome is loud, messy, compelling. And if we stay here long enough, we might meet someone who embodies both the best and worst of this city. This is Cicero, a Roman who rose from humble origins to become the most famous orator of his age. But before we get to know the great Cicero, we need to learn how he got to where he is today. His story started in a small village north of Rome, in Arpinum. In those days, traveling to the capital was no easy feat. Roads were rough, travel was slow, and bandits lurked everywhere. Cicero was only 7 years old when his father took him on this trip. It must have been an epic journey, taking weeks to traverse the rough terrain. The young boy would later recall the deep impressions left by this trip, the dust, the fumes of the roads, the wild animals. These would shape his view of the world and influence his future path. When Cicero returned to Arpinum, he would have attended a small local school, probably run by a slave. Here, he would have learned the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic. But his true education began when he arrived in Rome, where he entered the prestigious oratorical school of Rome, founded by the famous speaker. It was here that he honed his speaking skills, practicing the art of rhetoric, learning how to persuade and captivate an audience. Cicero excelled in his studies and soon after began his legal career. His rise was meteoric. He became a Roman knight, then a lawyer, eventually achieving the highest offices in the land. At the height of his power, he owned several residences in Rome, including one close to the Forum Magnum. On this day, though, he is preparing to leave Rome. He has been assigned to prosecute a governor in a faraway province. Leaving the city behind, we see Cicero board a ship bound for Athens. The sea is rough, the boat is pitching, and Cicero is seasick. Yet even in this discomfort, we find hints of the great orator. He uses his staff not just for support, but to make impromptu speeches, declaiming poetry and practicing rhetoric. For Cicero, even illness cannot stop his pursuit of excellence. When the ship finally reaches port, he disembarks and begins his journey to Athens. Traveling by land was safer, but no less tiring. Roads were often rough, accommodations uncomfortable, and the threat of robbery always present. Still, Cicero pressed on, stopping at taverns to rest and refresh himself, and wherever he went, he engaged with local orators, debating and exchanging ideas. Finally, he arrives in Athens, ready to prosecute his case. But let's return to Rome and visit the ruins of Pompeii. It is early morning, and we can hear the buzz of activity as merchants prepare for the day ahead. A merchant hauls grain, sacks onto his cart. A fishmonger arranges his catch. A cobbler hammers away at a sandal. All around us, life is getting ready to start. We can hear children playing, dogs barking, vendors calling out. But beyond the bustling marketplace, there is a quiet neighborhood. In a house here, a family prepares for their day. A woman stirs a pot at the hearth. Her husband sharpens his knife to slice bread. Their son plays with a puppy. Life here is peaceful, if hard. The walls are thin, and the family can hear their neighbors, grinding an olive press, tending to an oven. Laughter drifts from a nearby house. Suddenly, the ground trembles. The family feels a jolt beneath their feet. They look up, confused. The sky is clear, the air is calm. And then the walls crumble. The building next door collapses. The family runs outside in terror. They can hear screams in the wind. As the earth trembles again, they know they must flee. The family races down the street, racing away from the danger. Behind them, houses crumble. The air is filled with dust and smoke. In the distance, they can hear the roar of the mountain. They keep running, desperately seeking safety, and then everything goes black. In the shadow of Vesuvius, life has ended for the people of Pompeii. As we wander through the ruins, we can see the traces of their lives. A loaf of bread on a shelf, a toy by the side of a house, sandals in the street. We can almost hear their laughter echoing through the ruins. But their story is not ours to tell. Instead, it is a story of loss, of lives cut short, of a community forever silenced. And now we turn away from the tragic fate of Pompeii and visit the luxurious home of a Roman aristocrat. This is the Villa of Mysteries near Pompeii. The gardens are full of exotic plants and flowers, carefully arranged to delight the eye. Fountains gurgle, birds sing, and the air is sweet with the scent of blooming orange trees. Inside the villa, we can see servants arranging furniture to prepare for a party. Their employer, a wealthy nobleman, has invited friends to enjoy the pleasures of his estate. Fine couches and dining tables are placed in the courtyard, ready for conversation and good food. Servants move about gracefully, pouring wine and topping up goblets. Musicians tune their instruments, ready to play for their hosts. As the guests arrive, we can see the wealth on display. Gold and silver vessels are brought out, filled with wine from far-off lands. Exotic foods are laid out on platters, prepared by slaves who have toiled for hours in the kitchen. Men wear fine linen tunics and golden wreaths, while women drape themselves in jewels and perfume. The party lasts late into the night, filled with music, dancing and conversation. But as the revelers depart, we can see the dark side of this luxury. Servants hurry to clean up, quickly removing evidence of the party. Slaves hurry to carry away the waste, ensuring that their master's house remains spotless. The stark contrast between the opulence of the party and the drudgery of the servants is clear, and as we leave the villa, we are struck by the inequality that marked Roman life. So now we come to the end of our gentle journey through ancient Rome. Along the way, we've heard the echoes of daily life, the clatter of the craftsman, the call of the merchant, the laughter of children. We've met Cicero, the brilliant orator, and seen the quiet tragedy of Pompeii. Finally, we've witnessed the stark contrast between wealth and poverty in the Villa of Mysteries. What struck you most? The bustle of the marketplace, the tragedy of Pompeii, or the extravagance of the villas? Share your thoughts. Rome was not built in a day, but it was not gentle on those who lived in it. Cicero, born in the heart of Rome, knew this well. He would have known the heat rising from the sun-baked stones, the clatter of carts rumbling over cobblestones, the murmur of bartering merchants. But even he, the famed Roman statesman and orator, could not always outrun the harsh realities of Roman life. His father was ambitious. He wanted his son to be successful. So the young Tully, as he was called at the time, went away to school in Athens, which was a nice school, though not cheap, and while he was gone, his family's financial situation took a turn for the worse. His father lost some money and then died, leaving Cicero with a big estate and a pile of debt, and now the responsibility to care for his mother and siblings. That is how Marcus Tullius Cicero found himself in court fighting to save his family's property, which was, to put it mildly, disastrous. He had not expected to be so young and so inexperienced. In court, he defended his land successfully, and that success made him famous. And from that point on, he was known as Cicero. He was born in 106 BC and died in 43 BC. He became a senator, then a consul, the highest elected office in the Roman Republic. And he was successful. He worked to protect Rome, defend its borders, and maintain its greatness. He was also pretty prolific as a writer, writing about rhetoric, about morality, about politics. But that life of power and prestige came at a price. Rome was growing rapidly in the century before Christ's birth, expanding across Italy and beyond. The Republic's legions marched on distant shores, returning spoils and slaves. Rome became a magnet for all of Italy, for conquered peoples, for Greeks, for Gauls. It was a rich mix of cultures, but the tensions simmered beneath the surface. Rome, at its core, was still deeply conservative. The old ways, the old gods, the old fears of outsiders, they held strong, but change was relentless, and so you had Cicero caught between tradition and upheaval. This series is presented in partnership with Wandrium. The civil wars of the late Roman Republic were long and brutal. First there was the Social War, which was a war between Rome and its Italian allies. Then came the civil wars of Marius and Sulla. Then Caesar rose up and was assassinated, and then there was another civil war. By the time Cicero was a grown man, Rome had seen decades of bloodshed. Violence and ambition poisoned the Republic. The seas buzzed with warships, the roads with troops. The Senate itself echoed with plots and threats. It was a world of gilded cages and iron bars. In this environment, Cicero sought to steady the ship of state, but he couldn't control everything. He tried to stop Caesar from crossing the Rubicon River and starting a civil war. When that failed, he switched sides, supporting Mark Antony against Octavian, Caesar's adopted son. But after Octavian won, Cicero was exiled, forced to flee Rome and live in self-imposed exile. But this wasn't like a normal vacation. He was afraid for his life. He didn't know if he'd ever see Rome again. He stayed in places like Athens and Greece and wrote letters to his friend Atticus in Rome, pleading for news of his family and friends. He worried about his property, whether it would be safe, whether it would be lost. And he worried about Rome. He feared for its future. What he wrote to Atticus revealed the depth of his longing for home and his deep concern for the fate of his beloved Rome. And because Cicero was smart and careful, he managed to get pardoned, and he returned to Rome only to find that the peace he hoped for did not last. More civil wars and assassinations erupted. Cicero aligned himself with the second triumvirate, Octavian, Antony, and Lepidus, but he never fully trusted Antony. He opposed the alliance with Cleopatra, Egypt's queen, and he was suspicious of Antony's growing power. And eventually, he sided against Antony and Cleopatra in the final civil war of the Republic. But even after Octavian won and Rome became the empire, Cicero continued to oppose his rule. He feared that Octavian, soon to be known as Augustus, the first emperor of Rome, was becoming a tyrant. He believed that Rome was about to lose its freedom and become a monarchy. So he ran for consul again, hoping to rally the opposition. But Augustus got wind of Cicero's plans and ordered his assassins to kill him. So when you think of Rome during Cicero's lifetime, think of a city that was violent and ambitious, full of people pursuing their own goals. of merchants hawking their wares, of soldiers returning from distant lands, of senators plotting in the shadows, of a populace demanding their bread and circuses. Think of a city that was magnificent but dangerous. And as you picture Cicero striding through its bustling streets, remember that even the greatest of Rome could not escape its harshest realities. The central district of Rome was a beehive of activity. Imagine walking through the Forum, a vast open space surrounded by government buildings, temples and shops. The Forum was the heart of ancient Rome. Here, men engaged in business deals, politicians debated, orators persuaded. The Forum was a sea of people, men in togas, lawyers with scrolls, merchants touting wares, all jostled for space. The air buzzed with chatter in Latin and Greek. Slaves bearing trays of wine or figs moved purposefully through the crowd. The Forum was a symphony of sounds and smells. The tang of leather, incense, baking bread mingled with the stench of stale waste and animals. If you were a senator, you might enter through the majestic arches of the Temple of Saturn, past the statue of Romulus, the legendary founder of Rome. As you approached the rostra, or speaker's platform, where orators held forth, you could look out over the Forum. The view was dominated by the Capitoline Hill, home to the three major gods of the Roman pantheon, Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva. On the far side of the Forum stood the Basilica Aemilia, a grand courthouse. Its pillars and arches offered shade to those gathered for trials or hearings, and you can visit these places today. The Forum and the Palatine Hill, where the legendary Romulus founded the city, and the Colosseum, where gladiators fought to the death for the amusement of spectators. All of that is preserved at the Roman Forum and Palatine Hill UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Roman Forum and Palatine Hill are just one of the incredible sites that you can explore with Wondrium. Wondrium, formerly the Great Courses, is an amazing resource for anyone who wants to learn something new. Their carefully crafted documentaries take you to places you might never go and introduce you to ideas you probably haven't heard. And I have a special offer for viewers of this show. The first 200 people to use my link, wondrium.com/Ben, will get a free trial. To learn more, head to wondrium.com/Ben and sign up for your free trial today. That's wondrium.com/Ben. As we continue to follow Cicero's life, we can take a stroll through the heart of ancient Rome. Cicero's house was grand, a testament to his wealth and status. Imagine entering through a courtyard surrounded by fountains and statues. Beyond lay a colonnaded garden shaded by vines and trees. The peristyle was a place for quiet, for reading, for conversation. Inside the house, frescoed walls adorned with mythological scenes gave way to mosaic floors depicting intricate patterns. Furniture made of ivory and cedar wood was inlaid with precious stones. Slaves circulated ready to serve. Wine flowed freely, mixing with perfumes and flowers. Dinner parties were legendary, with courses of delicacies, wine from far-off lands and poetry readings. The centerpiece was the atrium, a square room with a fountain or an altar, symbolizing the household's connection to the gods. But Rome was not built for privacy. Even in Cicero's grand house, neighbors could eavesdrop. The walls were thin, the gardens cramped. The clamor of the city seeped in, mixing with the sounds of domestic life, servants moving, children playing, visitors arriving. Despite the opulence, Rome's reality intruded. The smell of sewage, of animals, of cooking pervaded. Dust from the streets found its way in. The bustle of traffic echoed in the distance. The grandeur of Cicero's house was a fragile thing, a bubble of wealth and culture in a city teeming with noise and dirt. It was in this house, amidst the luxury and the noise, that Cicero plotted his political campaigns, met with ambassadors and received guests from across the Republic. The walls witnessed his triumphs, his defeats, his hopes for Rome. They saw him transform from a young lawyer to a respected statesman, a tragic fall from grace, and finally his assassination. Now you can experience Rome in a whole new way. Wondrium has a fantastic course called Ancient Rome, where you'll get to travel through the Colosseum, walk around the Forum, visit the Pantheon. You can learn anything. Ancient Rome covers all aspects of daily life in the Eternal City, from its stunning architecture to its complex social structure, from the rise of Christianity to its military glory. You can even trace the footsteps of Jesus as he visited Rome. You can watch Ancient Rome on demand, anytime, anywhere, and pause, rewind, and fast forward through the lessons. Wondrium is affordable, it's convenient, and it's a wonderful way to expand your knowledge. And as I mentioned, the first 200 people to use my link, Wondrium.com/Ben, will get a free trial. That's Wondrium.com/Ben. Don't miss out on this opportunity to learn more about ancient Rome. Visit Wondrium.com/Ben and start exploring today. Thank you for watching. In the year 79 CE, the earth shook violently around the Bay of Naples. On that day, the city of Pompeii ceased to exist. In seconds, it was buried under tons of ash and pumice. All life abruptly ended there. There was no more movement in the streets, no more light in the windows, only stillness. Now, 2,000 years later, you can walk those very streets. You can see the shadows of the marketplace on the hardened lava, or touch the wall where a baker hung his wares. What do you see? Broken statues, chipped vessels, the imprint of a wheel in dried mud. You are walking back through time, and it is fascinating. We keep excavating new parts of Pompeii, finding more artifacts, learning more about everyday life in Roman times. We know how people died, where they lived, what they traded, even what they ate. Recently, scientists even identified the fingerprints of some victims. But in all of this detail, we may be missing the big picture. More than just stuff. We want to understand how people lived and thought, how they saw the world. We want to experience Pompeii for ourselves. So close your eyes for a moment and imagine life in this lost city. Feel the sun on your skin, the dust of the road beneath your sandals. Hear the chatter of vendors and the shouts of children playing. What do you smell? Olive oil, wood smoke, fresh bread, the tang of fish from the sea. Imagine the sights as well. A mother carrying water, a father leading his sons to school, a slave guiding a team of oxen. If you really want to connect to life in Pompeii, you have to look beyond the objects. You need to find the people. We begin with someone important, the owner of this house, a man named Lucius Caecilius Jucundus. He was a wealthy merchant, and this was his private quarters, carefully decorated with paintings and sculptures. Look at the atrium first, the center of the house, shaded by a glass-like structure called a compluvium. This was the heart of the home, a place for relaxing, eating, conducting business. Here, slaves would have mixed perfumes for bathing and garlands for parties. See the cubiculum next, a bedroom painted in Pompeian red. This was probably where Lucius slept with his wife Julia, who must have been quite a bit younger. This room was decorated with pictures of women bathing and mythological scenes. Then there was the peristyle garden, a colonnaded walkway surrounding a courtyard. This was another favorite spot for relaxation. A fountain in the middle provided soothing music and mist. Slaves pruned the trees and vines, tended the flowers and herbs. Nearby, on a side street, was the Thermopolium, a snack bar attached to the house. Archaeologists found dozens of amphoras, large jars used for storing wine. Imagine thirsty customers lining up, taking turns pouring their own drinks, then shouting loudly and laughing as they watch gladiators fight. But life in Pompeii wasn't always so pleasant. Just down the road is the House of the Vetii, similar in size and style. But look closely. The interior is filled with graffiti, vulgar drawings, lewd jokes scrawled on the walls. This was left behind by soldiers stationed here by the nearby garrison. Some drawings were meant to shock, others to entertain. At the gladiator barracks, men got ready for battle. Across the courtyard, they practiced fighting with wooden swords. They sparred, lunged, dodged, learning how to kill. Most gladiators were slaves or foreigners captured in war. They were paid a wage and given food, but their lives were still brutal. Here in Pompeii, fights broke out easily. Swords flashed. Sometimes the crowds watching the training sessions got so excited that they joined in. People could lose fingers and eyes in these sessions. The losers often died. Back on the main street, the Via Stabiana, merchants hawked their wares. They sold everything from perfume to pottery. At the corner, a shopkeeper balanced scales, carefully measuring coins. For the customer, he knew the value of each coin by heart. Every piece was weighed to ensure it was pure. When he heard a counterfeit, he crushed it in his fist. Near the market was the Forum, the civic center of Pompeii. Here, people gathered to discuss politics, gossip, or strike deals. They passed by temples dedicated to the emperor and local cults. They walked past taverns and brothels. There was even a prison in the Forum, a building with barred windows and thick stone walls. No wonder criminals hated coming here. But of all these places, nothing was more important than the amphitheatre. Built in 70 BCE, it was one of the largest in Italy. Here 20,000 spectators sat on long benches, watching gladiators fight or wild animals prowl. Imagine the roar of the crowd, the clash of steel, the taste of blood in the air. This was the place to be on a Saturday. Some people in Pompeii were free to enjoy these spectacles. Others worked hard to make sure that everything went smoothly. Slaves served drinks in taverns, cleaned rooms in brothels, cared for injured gladiators. Their hours were long, and the work was dangerous. One slave might pour wine while planning his escape. Another might polish armor while dreaming of freedom. Sadly, most never escaped. One slave owned by a wealthy family was so unhappy that he cursed them in a painting. This may seem crazy, but archaeologists discovered a curse tablet hidden under a floorboard nearby. It was inscribed with protective magic meant to ward off evil spirits, specifically the spirit of this slave. He may have been trying to protect himself from harm or cause harm to those who owned him. Either way, this was a desperate act. Pompeii was built on a volcano, Mount Vesuvius. Its slopes stretched out to the south of the city, reaching down to the sea. For the Pompeians, the mountain was a constant presence. They farmed its lower slopes, raising olives, grapes, vegetables, and fruit. Animals grazed in the pastures. Villagers made cheese from their milk. Most of the food, though, was grown closer to the city. In the fertile plain to the north, farmers tilled the soil and planted crops. Wheat, barley, legumes and flax grew abundantly. Citrus trees thrived, providing oranges, lemons and pomegranates. Here, too, were vineyards. Slaves cleared the land, pruned the vines and crushed the grapes. But it was worth it. Wine was an important part of daily life in Pompeii. Everyone drank it, from the richest merchant to the poorest laborer. And finally, along the coast, fishermen cast their nets into the water, pulling in silvery fish. They hauled up shellfish too, abalone, oysters, mussels. Slaves cleaned and prepared the catch, turning it into a supper of fried fish and seafood stew. Food was important in Pompeii, and not just for eating. In fact, cooking competitions were held in the Forum, drawing huge crowds. The best chefs in Pompeii brought their specialties and set up stalls. They sold cakes, sausages, fruits, nuts, anything that tasted good. Imagine strolling through the Forum, stopping to eat and chat. Later, you watch the cooking contest while sipping wine. Life is good in Pompeii. Your future seems bright. But outside the city, trouble is brewing. The eruption of Mount Vesuvius changed everything. Ash rained down on the city, covering houses, streets, people. It turned daytime into darkness. Heat rose with the ash, baking the city and everyone in it. After a few days, the survivors left. They abandoned their homes and fled. In the distance, the mountain smoked. Nobody returned. For 1600 years, Pompeii was forgotten. Only a few ruins poked up out of the ground. Then, in 1748, a building collapsed. Excavations began. Since then, over 100 acres have been uncovered. Archaeologists found bodies trapped in lava, outlines of people and animals preserved in ash. They found furniture, paintings, jewelry, the remains of meals. Because Pompeii was buried so quickly, almost everything remained intact. Many artifacts are displayed in museums today. Others are right where they were found, still standing in their ancient rooms. The city is open to visitors too. Every year, thousands come to explore the ruins, to imagine themselves in the midst of daily life in Roman Italy. What do you think of it? Is it strange to visit a lost city, to stroll through empty streets and silent houses? Maybe it's best to leave the past in the past, to learn about Pompeii from books and films. But if you go, remember this. Beneath every brick and ruin is a story, a person with a name and a life. Look for them. Listen to their voices. In the silence of the ruins, they are waiting to be found. Welcome to this villa, where the very walls whisper of feasts fit for Caesar. My name is Name. As your guide, I'll help you uncover the secrets held within these ancient stones. Now, before we venture inside, let us pause. Close your eyes and picture a meal fit for a Roman senator. Rich meats, golden oils, goblets of wine, the murmur of conversation and laughter echoing around. Open your eyes and imagine you're part of this scene. You've just arrived at the Villa of the Mysteries in Pompeii. Our tour begins in the atrium, the heart of the house. Here, 4 temple-like structures reach for a central fountain, creating a sacred space dedicated to the household gods. Each home in ancient Rome had them, Lares and Penates, spirits believed to bless the house with fertility, health, and protection. No Roman would dream of building without first appeasing them. Sunlight streams through the atrium, illuminating the intricate paintings on the walls. Scenes from Greek mythology unfold before our eyes. Gods and heroes come to life. But who lived here? The villa once belonged to a senator's family, though their names have been lost to history. They were the Cornelia family, we think. Why? Look there. On that wall, a portrait of a woman. Her face has been identified as Julia, the wife of Cornelius. Her gaze is cool, her posture proud. Next to her stands her husband Cornelius, holding the staff of a Roman senator. Beneath their portraits, the names of their children peek out, Cornelia and Titus. Together, they form a powerful image of family pride. But this villa holds many stories, some joyous, some tragic. Imagine the sounds of music drifting from the peristyle garden. This colonnaded courtyard echoes with the laughter of friends and family gathered for a meal. Perhaps it's the birthday of young Cornelia, and musicians have been hired to play for the celebration. The scent of flowers mingles with the music carried on the breeze from the fragrant garden. Here, fountains bubbled and rare plants from faraway lands were displayed. Slaves bustled about, watering delicate blossoms and keeping the pathways swept. But the villa wasn't just a place of parties. Let's follow Cornelia through the house and discover the routines of everyday life. The atrium opens into a labyrinth of rooms. Here, Cornelia pauses to dip her quill in ink at her writing desk. She must draft a letter to a friend, or perhaps oversee accounts for her father's business. Nearby, a servant cleans scrolls with a bone tool, ready for reuse. Behind her, Titus enters, having just returned from school, his slate still clutched in his hand. He runs to greet his mother, eager for her praise after a hard day of lessons. How does he feel about living in this grand house? What are his favorite parts? If you ask him, he might describe the mosaic floors, crafted with such care that they become works of art, Or maybe he'll tell you about the triclinium, the dining room where cushions line the walls and couches, invite guests to recline. In this room, conversations flowed like wine as friends and family shared meals and stories. Now, close your eyes and imagine a banquet here. Food is brought in on silver trays, piled high with delicacies from across the empire. Exotic fish flown in from the coast of Africa, grapes crushed to make sweet wine, and roasted meats seasoned with spices from Arabia. The table groans under the weight of abundance, but this feast comes at a price. Slaves have worked tirelessly to prepare the meal, arranging each dish with practiced hands. And as you dine, their presence hovers nearby. For in this opulent setting, slavery is never far away. Some slaves prepare new courses in the kitchen, a maze of stoves and storage rooms. Others serve with grace, pouring wine and clearing plates. And some stand guard at the entrance, watching silently. While the party continues into the night, beneath the glow of oil lamps, it's easy to forget those who made this evening possible. But remember, every pleasure here has a shadow. Every dish savored is prepared by unseen hands. Every glass raised in celebration is filled by silent servants. Let us now explore further, leaving the bustling activity behind. Here we find a quiet sanctuary, a shrine to the goddess of love, Venus Genetrix. Delicate frescoes adorn the walls, depicting the goddess in all her beauty. Incense swirls around us as we light a candle at the altar, joining generations of Romans who worshipped here. But the villa holds mysteries too. In this room, we discover a secret. Hidden beneath the floor, archaeologists found a set of stairs leading to underground chambers. These frigidarium and tepidarium were used for heating and cooling air and water for the baths. Imagine slaves shuffling through the tunnels, tending fires and regulating the temperature. It's a fascinating glimpse into the villa's inner workings, a hidden world essential to life above. While the wealthy enjoyed the luxuries of baths heated to perfection, slaves labored in the shadows. But the villa wasn't just about indulgence. Take a look at the palestra. Here, frescoes of athletes vie for our attention, frozen in mid-stride. This room was part of a gym where members of the household exercised. Slaves likely toiled here too, cleaning and maintaining the equipment while their masters exercised. And finally, we arrive at the cubiculum. Here the walls are adorned with the most exquisite fresco in the villa. The marriage of Peleus and Thetis, the parents of Achilles, stretches across the bedroom wall, celebrating the union of mortals and immortals. Above them, Aphrodite presides over the wedding, surrounded by cupids. The scene is peaceful, but can you see what lurks in the corner? A skeleton dressed in finery stares blankly ahead. Death is never far from the Roman mind, even in the midst of luxury. Remember, life here ended abruptly with the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. Amidst the riches, the skeletons of Cornelia, her husband and son, lay buried, eternally frozen in their final moments. As we wander through the cubiculum, we cannot help but feel the weight of their loss. Standing in the shadow of death, we contemplate our own mortality. Who were these people whose lives were cut short in an instant? How did they live? What dreams did they hold? What loves did they cherish? As we explore Pompeii, we encounter the echoes of everyday life. Imagine strolling through the Forum, the bustling center of the city. The Forum Romanum teems with activity. Shopkeepers call out to attract buyers. Lawyers argue cases. Politicians seek votes. In the distance, a judge presides over a legal dispute. As you pass, merchants display their wares. Colorful fabrics, pottery, and fresh fruit spill out of baskets, tempting passers-by. The smell of bread, fresh from the oven, drifts from a nearby bakery, mingling with the aroma of roasting meat. Slaves haggle over prices, while their masters linger, inspecting goods or debating politics. Suddenly, a commotion breaks out. People gather around an orator, his voice rising above the din, captivating the crowd. Perhaps he's a politician promising reforms, or a philosopher sharing wisdom from Greece. All around you, people stop their work to listen. Their attention is focused on the speaker, hanging on every word. Then, just as quickly, the crowd disperses, returning to their tasks. Life in the forum moves on, but the city has its solemn moments. Further down the road, we approach the amphitheater. Its tiers of seats are packed with spectators eager for entertainment. The roar of the crowd echoes as gladiators clash in the center. Some fight with swords and shields, others with nets and tridents. The air is thick with tension as the crowd cheers and jeers. But not all performances are so violent. There are also mock sea battles staged in the arena, complete with ships and billowing sails. Actors perform scenes from Greek mythology, bringing stories to life. The amphitheater is a place of spectacle and drama, offering a temporary escape from the everyday. After the performance, we stroll through the city, pausing at the many sights that catch our eye. We admire the intricate paintings on a villa's wall, depicting idyllic landscapes and mythical creatures. The use of color is bold, creating a tapestry of beauty that adorns the city. And our journey through Pompeii leads us to one last destination, the House of the Faun. Stepping inside, we are greeted by a sight that takes our breath away. Before us lies the peristyle, a courtyard surrounded by columns adorned with intricate carvings. The centerpiece is a magnificent mosaic depicting the birth of the Roman god of wine, Bacchus. Vines, leaves, and exotic birds swirl around him, creating a breathtaking spectacle of color and detail. As you gaze at the masterpiece, imagine the skilled hands that created it, patiently arranging small pieces of glass to form this grand design. It's a testament to the artistry and craftsmanship of the time. But the house holds more wonders. Let's continue our exploration and discover the Roman kitchen. Here, a baker kneads dough on a marble counter, his movements practiced and rhythmic. Ovens stand ready to receive loaves of bread, filling the air with a tantalizing aroma. Beside the kitchen, slaves prepare ingredients, chopping vegetables, stirring sauces, and cleaning fish. The room is bustling with activity as they work tirelessly to provide food for the household. It's a privilege to witness the essence of Roman life here, to see how food is prepared, how ingredients are brought together to create delicious meals. In this house we can almost taste the flavors of the past. With our tour complete, we leave the House of the Faun, carrying with us the memories of this extraordinary place. The vibrant mosaics, the bustling kitchen, the haunting glimpses into daily life. As we say goodbye to Pompeii, we carry a piece of its magic within us. The spirit of a city frozen in time, forever reminding us of the power of the past. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the villa. Until next time, may the echoes of laughter, love, and life in ancient Rome continue to resonate within you. In the ruins of Pompeii, there is a small collection of houses huddled together at the base of Vesuvius. They are humble and plain, unlike the grand mansions found elsewhere in the city. These were the houses of the slaves who served in the great Pompeians. In 79 AD, when Mount Vesuvius erupted and covered the Roman city of Pompeii in a thick layer of ash, it was said that 2,000 people lost their lives. It was a tragedy, but it was also an extraordinary moment in history. The eruption preserved Pompeii as if it were a piece of amber. It stopped the city in time and left us with a unique window into Roman life. When you think of ancient Rome, you probably imagine emperors and gladiators, chariots and columns, marble statues and gold coins. But the reality of daily life for ordinary people was actually quite different. Everyday life in ancient Rome was pretty tough. There was no modern plumbing or heating, and most people lived in crowded, dirty neighborhoods called insulae. The air was thick with smoke from factories. and people would cover their noses and mouths with wet cloths to try and filter the air. The streets were narrow and bumpy, so it was hard to get around, and there were always people trying to sell you something or beg for money. Plus, there were gangs and rivalries between neighborhoods, so you had to be careful walking alone at night. Even basic services like garbage collection didn't exist, so people just threw their waste out into the street. Food was also a big problem. Most people ate bland porridge made from cheap grains like wheat or barley. Meat was a rare treat, and fresh fruit and vegetables were hard to come by. And if you were unlucky enough to fall ill, you had little hope of getting better. Medical care was expensive, and doctors didn't know much about how to treat most illnesses. Life in ancient Rome was not easy, but it was also really exciting. The city was full of amazing sights and sounds, and there was always something going on. There were chariot races, gladiator fights, and public executions. People from all over the empire came to see the sights, and there was a constant stream of new ideas and ways of doing things. If you were successful, you could earn a lot of money and become very powerful. Rome was also a center of culture and learning, and some of the greatest works of art and literature were created here. It was also a religious city. There were temples and shrines everywhere, and people went to the public spaces to pray and sacrifice to the gods. Religion was a big part of daily life for most Romans. Now let's imagine you are about to leave the bustling city of Rome and experience life at one of its grandest villas. Our journey takes us beyond the Forum and the Colosseum, away from the clamor of the city, up a long driveway bordered by trees heavy with ripening fruit. Our destination is the villa of a Roman senator, a place where the pace of life is slower and the air is sweeter. Our guide, a former slave, tells us of his old master, a man respected even by his peers. He describes his good character, his tendency to help strangers, and his efforts to improve the lives of those around him. Suddenly, the road ahead opens into a wide courtyard, paved with stone and shaded by tall columns. Servants move quietly, pulling weeds from flower beds or guiding a pair of horses towards their stall. Before us stands a grand house, vast and open. It does not rise in height like the insulae, but stretches wide, offering cool shade against the intense sun. The sight of the villa overwhelms us. It seems out of place in the countryside. We find ourselves enveloped in an air of tranquility. The sound of crickets mingles with the murmur of servants' voices. In the distance, the laughter of children echoes warmly, lending an air of happiness to this place. Entering the courtyard, we turn to leave the outside world behind. The air within the villa is fragrant, carrying hints of garden and flowering vines. Beneath our feet, instead of rough stone, we tread on tiny colored tiles. They are arranged in intricate mosaics of fish swimming, vines curling, and scenes from myth. The walls soar high, adorned with frescoes. Light streams in through tall windows, painting patterns on the polished marble floors. It falls on statues of gods and heroes, resting on tables made of precious stones. The villa is not merely a home, but a stage for the display of wealth. Our tour begins in the atrium, the heart of the house. Its central pool reflects the azure sky, framed by the colonnaded fountain. This space, meant for quiet contemplation, exudes an air of solemn dignity. Further in, we find the triclinium, the dining hall. Couches line the walls where guests can recline during meals. Our guide explains that although women customarily ate separately, they occasionally joined men in this room. Above, the ceiling glistens with gold leaf decorations depicting nocturnal scenes under a canopy of stars. The banquet is laid out on a low table in front of each couch. Imagine being stretched out on one, supported by soft cushions as slaves move silently between tables laden with food. The centerpiece is a silver platter holding roasted game, accompanied by plates of seasoned fish and honeyed fruit. Goblets filled with a potent wine mixture await us. The scene is completed by musicians playing softly in the corner, adding to the atmosphere of leisure. Through an archway, we glimpse a fountained courtyard bathed in soft light. It is a reminder of the villa's harmonious blend of luxury and tranquility. Turning back, we note the grand double doors inviting us to explore further. The next room is our host's bedroom. Ornate curtains frame a large bed draped with fine linen and adorned with golden pillows. Frescoes of mythological scenes decorate the walls, while nearby, a marble bust sits serenely on a table. Our guide indicates a door concealed by a curtain, which leads to the private bathroom, a haven of heated marble floors and perfumed vapors from the fountain. Continuing on, we come across the cubiculum, a room used both for business and leisure. Slaves sit on low stools, their nimble fingers working on intricate pieces of cloth. Nearby, a secretary meticulously copies scrolls, his quill scratching on papyrus. As our tour continues, we notice signs of everyday life. On a table lies a broken vase, waiting to be mended. On the wall hangs a canvas shoe, and a dog rests peacefully nearby. These details remind us that even in a grand villa, life is lived with its everyday challenges and joys. Emerging from the villa, we find ourselves in a garden of clipped hedges, sparkling fountains and graceful statues. The air is sweet with the fragrance of roses, and the sound of cicadas fills the air. At the end of the garden, an avenue of trees invites us to stroll. In the distance, fields stretch to the horizon, a testament to the labor that sustains this opulent lifestyle. We return to the entrance to discover the final surprise, a view of the road leading back to Rome. As we wave goodbye to our guide, we realize that we are not just leaving a villa, but a way of life. And now we have reached the end of our journey through Rome. What did we learn? First, Rome wasn't just a place, it was a feeling, a clash of cultures, languages and lives. It was a melting pot of East and West. Second, we learned about the inequality of the Roman era, the sharp contrast between the wealth of the elite and the struggles of the poor. We saw how the mighty Emperor Augustus shaped the city, but also how ordinary people coped with life in crowded insulae. We glimpsed the vibrant marketplaces, the grandeur of the Colosseum, and the peaceful retreat of a Roman senator's villa. Finally, we realized that Rome wasn't just about power and conquest, it was about beauty and innovation. The Pantheon, the aqueducts, and the Appian Way are testaments to the Roman genius for engineering and design. The eruption of Vesuvius preserved Pompeii and Herculaneum, giving us a unique window into Roman life. Rome's legacy lives on in our language, our art, and our way of life. So as we say goodbye to this ancient city, let us carry with us the lessons and inspiration it has given us. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you enjoyed this tour, please share your feedback. Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious. The sun sinks below the horizon, setting the Roman sky ablaze with hues of orange and purple. In the distance, the silhouette of St. Peter's Basilica stands tall against the fading light, a beacon against the encroaching darkness. It has been an exhilarating journey through time, a tour of ancient Rome unlike any other. And now, as we bring our adventure to a close, it's time to reflect on the tapestry of experiences that have unfolded before our very eyes. We began our journey in the heart of the bustling metropolis, exploring the ancient tenements, where life was a constant struggle for survival. The air was thick with the aroma of stale waste and chamber pots, a stark reminder of the unsanitary conditions that pervaded these crowded dwellings. The narrow, winding streets echoed with the murmurs of countless inhabitants going about their daily routines, each step a testament to the density of population that characterized ancient Rome. The flickering lamplight cast dancing shadows on the damp walls, creating an eerie ambience that hinted at the hardships endured by those who called this place home. The constant threat of eviction loomed over the tenants, a grim reality that drove home the precarious nature of their existence. Our path then led us to the grand halls of Cicero's house, where the celebrated orator had once entertained guests. Here, amidst the remnants of marble columns and faded frescoes, we marveled at the opulence that had once defined this space. Cicero's silver tongue had carried him to the pinnacle of political success, but his demise had been a brutal reminder of the cutthroat nature of Roman politics. The very walls of his house bore silent witness to the turbulent times in which he lived, each crack and crevice whispering tales of ambition and betrayal. As the full moon rose high in the night sky, we found ourselves transported to the haunting ruins of Pompeii. The streets were eerily silent, devoid of the hustle and bustle that had once animated this thriving Roman city. The air hung heavy, with the scent of volcanic ash, a somber reminder of the catastrophic fate that befell Pompeii and its inhabitants. The skeletal remains of buildings lined the path, their roofs caved in, revealing the empty spaces where families once lived out their daily lives. Every step we took brought us closer to the tragic past, allowing us to connect with the enduring spirit of a city lost to time. Through the tales of a former guide, we glimpsed the vibrant culture and daily life that had once filled these streets. The haunting melodies of a glass harmonica echoed through the ruins, blending seamlessly with the melancholic strains of a cello. Together, they painted a poignant picture of a city frozen in time, its fate sealed forever beneath the shadow of Mount Vesuvius. Finally, we stepped into the hushed tranquility of a sprawling villa where the Roman elite had once sought refuge. The sprawling gardens offered a serene escape from the clamor of the city, a sanctuary of peace and solitude. The rhythmic gurgling of fountains harmonized with the chirping of crickets, creating a symphony of nature's tranquility. Statues stood majestically amidst manicured hedges, their stoic presence adding an air of timeless elegance to the surroundings. The muted colors of the villa's interior whispered tales of faded grandeur, each room echoing with the ghosts of lavish parties and intimate family gatherings. As the night deepened, the absence of human voices amplified the sounds of the natural world, the soft rustling of leaves overhead, the gentle caress of the evening breeze, and the distant hoot of an owl became the soundtrack of our experience. It was as if the very essence of tranquility had materialized in this place, enveloping us in its soothing embrace. Now, as our slow walk through ancient Rome comes to an end, let us pause and reflect. We began in the crowded tenements of the city, where survival meant long waits for bread, restless nights, and the constant noise of neighbors close at hand. We moved into the life of Cicero, a man whose words carried him to power, but whose end reminded us of the sharp edges of Roman politics. We then lingered in Pompeii, where ordinary days were suddenly frozen in time, preserved beneath the ash of Vesuvius. And finally, we stepped into the villas of the wealthy, where silence, beauty, and excess revealed a world far removed from the struggles of the poor. Through these glimpses, we have seen how Rome was never a single story. It was hardship and grandeur, ambition and fragility, noise and silence. The rhythm of life there pulsed with contrasts, crowded streets and quiet gardens, hunger and feasting, ash and marble. And yet, as distant as Rome feels, there are echoes that remain familiar. The need for food and water, the desire for comfort, the voices scratched into walls, the laughter of children at play. Across 2,000 years, the details have changed, but the patterns of human life remain. As you lie here now, you may feel grateful that you do not wake to fetch water from a fountain or queue for bread to survive another day. You do not walk streets blackened by smoke, nor fear the sudden collapse of a fragile wooden home. Your world, for all its challenges, offers warmth, safety, and a bed in which you may close your eyes without fear. So let the images of Rome drift gently away. The murmur of the Forum, the hush of Pompeii's streets, the trickle of fountains in a senator's villa. Let them dissolve into silence, leaving only the rhythm of your own breathing, steady and calm. History reminds us of what was endured, of lives lived and lost, of struggles and triumphs. But tonight, history also serves as a lullaby. You have walked the streets of ancient Rome, and now you may leave them behind, allowing rest to take their place. In the bustling metropolis, life was a constant struggle for survival. The tenements were overcrowded, the air was thick with the stench of waste, and the threat of eviction loomed large. Yet amidst the hardship, there was also a sense of community, a shared struggle that bound the inhabitants together. Cicero's house, a symbol of wealth and power, stood in stark contrast to the humble dwellings of the poor. The grandeur of his home was a testament to the excesses of Roman society, while his untimely demise served as a reminder of the dangers of political ambition. Pompeii, once a vibrant and thriving city, was abruptly silenced by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. Beneath the layer of ash, the city was perfectly preserved, offering us a haunting glimpse into the daily life of ancient Romans. The wealthy villa was a place of tranquility and luxury. Amidst the manicured gardens and gurgling fountains, life seemed idyllic. However, the very opulence that made it so appealing also contributed to its downfall, as the excesses of the ruling class ultimately led to the decline of Roman civilization. Rome, both in its grandeur and its struggles, is a timeless testament to the complexities of human existence. The lessons of its history continue to resonate today, reminding us of the importance of empathy, resilience, and the pursuit of a more equitable world. As we bring our journey to a close, let us carry with us the spirit of exploration and the wisdom gleaned from the echoes of the past. The legacy of ancient Rome lives on, not just in its ruins, but in the stories it tells and the questions it poses about the nature of humanity itself. Perhaps you, dear listener, will find yourself drawn back to these ancient streets in dreams, where the ghosts of the past dance with the whispers of eternity. Or maybe the vibrant colors and intoxicating rhythms of the souks will transport you to a world where spices mingle with the melodies of storytellers. If you enjoyed this immersive experience, don't forget to show your support. Your engagement fuels our journey through time and allows us to keep these historical adventures alive. And so, as the final notes of our Roman lullaby echo in your ears, we bid you farewell. May the spirit of exploration guide you, and may the echoes of history inspire you to dream, to wonder and to seek the magic that lies within the tapestry of time. Until next time, keep exploring, keep dreaming, and above all, keep listening.